What is up, guys? Rick Cacus here, and today we have a bunch of brand new information on the upcoming Forsaken expansion for Destiny 2. Now, this information is related to the pretty massive Forsaken leak that happened a few days ago, but that leak has been somewhat patched, and honestly, I don't want to report on everything I know about that leak because, you don't want to ruin people's experience in terms of story and what's going on with other aspects like that. But today we're just going to talk about some lighter features, things that are just cool to know about some of the content being added in Forsaken. So not really any story spoilers or anything like that that's going to ruin your experience, but rather this video is just going to focus on some cool things that you may want to know when either deciding to purchase Forsaken or going into that expansion. But if you want to go in completely blind again, you do want to probably avoid this video. So let's get started here with the Blind Well. Now, the Blind Well, we do already know that this is the Escalation Protocol style activity for the Forsaken expansion. In fact, we've already seen gameplay with the Escalation Protocol green symbols popping up when people were in this, Blind Well area. But what exactly is the Blind Well? Is it exactly like Escalation Protocol? Like, what happens in it? So, this Blind Well activity will take place in an area within the Dreaming City, which is kind of the end game location in Forsaken. So after you've done the campaign in the Tangled Shore, then you'll be able to unlock this new escalation style of activity. Apparently, when you activate the Blind Well, you're going to have 10 waves of enemies. Now, perhaps these 10 waves are kind of split up, like you do a couple of waves in a certain area, move to another area for another couple of waves, but apparently there is 10 waves in total. Keep in mind also that this Blind Well activity does take place somewhat inside an area in the Dreaming City. It doesn't take place in a wide open landscape like Escalation does on Mars, so you won't necessarily be traversing with your Sparrow from place to place to place. It's going to be a little bit more compact, very likely. Now, within those 10 waves, you're going to be killing enemies and bosses, and from waves 6 to 9, you're going to be defending a statue, which is pretty sweet because it offers a different gameplay experience. Escalation Protocol was more about seeking out and destroying enemies, whereas this sounds more defensive, trying to protect an objective and perhaps having to protect it from any enemies touching it and so on. So that's gonna just change the style in which you play. Now, as for Wave 10, apparently it's going to have a different boss that's going to rotate every week, just like Escalation Protocol, and there will be a chance for this activity to be dropping armor and exotic catalysts for 3 different unnamed weapons. So, pretty neat. Now, interestingly, there isn't necessarily a mention of exclusive weapons, like Blind Well exclusive weapons. I definitely hope so, because Escalation Protocol was popular because of the very unique weapons, and it was a really cool feature to have these exclusive Escalation Protocol weapons. Now, the catalysts are certainly nice. Catalysts have shown to be definite motivating factors in getting people to play, but again, I would love to see the Blind Well have its own exclusive rewards. It still might, but it wasn't necessarily talked about here. Now, moving on from there, we mentioned the Dreaming City when we talked about the Blind Well, but what exactly is going on with the Dreaming City? Well, again, we know it's the end game location for Forsaken. None of the campaign really takes place in the Dreaming City. It's all the after campaign activities that take place there, and we know that there's going to be a 3-week rotation of something different happens every week for 3 weeks, and then it potentially resets or something else happens. And from week to week to week, the Dreaming City location is actually going to change in some way. But in what way? Well, apparently the 3 different weeks are going to correspond with the 3 different levels of Taken corruption. And we have seen this somewhat in the trailer, where we see the Dreaming City looking kind of nice and pristine, and then looking not so nice, let's just say. So there's going to be like level 1, level 2, and level 3 of this Taken Corruption. And the higher the Taken Corruption goes, there's going to be more enemies, presumably Taken enemies, spawning in areas that before they didn't spawn. So essentially, from week 1 to week 2, there's going to be more enemies. In week 3, there's going to be the most enemies spawning all over the place, and you're apparently going to be able to reach areas within week 3, within the highest level of Taken Corruption that were previously inaccessible in other weeks. And therefore, once you can reach these new locations, they're probably going to unlock new activities and new rewards. Potentially, week 3 is going to unlock the raid. Now, 3 weeks between when an expansion comes out and when the raid comes out, that's pretty long. Like, that's definitely longer than normal, but it would definitely correspond with this ascending threat level. And then when it's the most crazy and you can reach the most areas within the Dreaming City, you'll finally be able to reach the raid. Alright, now moving on from there, let's talk a little bit about a Taken Sparrow. Yes, it was talked about during the first initial leak that there is going to be a Taken Sparrow. So apparently Zol, as in the big worm guy that we already killed, but also isn't dead because he was talking to us in the Whisper of the Worm quest, well, he's going to play a part in this quest. And yes, there's a new quest for this specific Sparrow, and the Sparrow has a hidden perk that isn't shown in game yet, so likely it'll be something new that other Sparrows don't have. And we don't have any details about the quest to go and get this Taken Sparrow just yet, but it will likely be somewhat similar to a world quest or an exotic quest. I'm actually hugely in favor of this. In Destiny 1, there was a lot of awesome cosmetics like shaders and ships that were acquirable through gameplay. And Destiny 2 kind of went away from that and put everything in Eververse, and it seems like they're bringing it back because it is nice to go and actually earn your cosmetics, not just pay for them or luckily get them. And moving on from there, the last thing we're going to talk about is something pretty crazy, and it's the return of the Prison of Elders. But of course, we already knew that, right? Well, kind of. It actually has been talked about even by Bungie that we are somewhat returning to the Prison of Elders, and the Prison of Elders is going to be playing a part within the story because there's a big prison escape on the reef. Well, the prison in the reef is the Prison of Elders, and yes, there's escaped convicts, and apparently hunting down some of these convicts is going to be some of the activities we get within Forsaken. But more specifically, we are actually going to be able to go back to the Prison of Elders during a strike. The strike called the Hallowed Lair. Now, interestingly, this is actually motivated Bungie to incorporate some extra rewards when compared to most other strikes, because the Hallowed Lair strike has more than one piece of strike-specific loot. In fact, it has much more strike-specific loot pieces than the other strikes within Forsaken. So potentially, going through this, Prison of Elders strike, you get to revisit the prison. Even though it's technically still a strike, you're earning potentially some Prison of Elders loot. I would love to have a Destiny 2 version of the Aegis of the Reef, or even, hopefully it even can reward exotics. I'm thinking the Lord of Wolves exotic shotgun would be an amazing thing to come back into Destiny 2. But that actually brings up a good point. Even though it doesn't look like the actual Prison of Elders activity is going to be necessarily replayable like it was in Destiny 1, we are absolutely returning to the area of the Prison of Elders, and therefore, are we going to see Prison of Elders exotics return? Because we are there, we're back at the prison for, I'm assuming, definitely story missions and this strike during Forsaken. So will we see, the Drake's Promise, the Lord of Wolves, and all that stuff in terms of exotics return with Forsaken? They've been bringing back a bunch of old Destiny 1 exotics. Is it finally time for the House of Wolves exotics to see some returns? Well, that's a great question. We won't really know until Forsaken goes live. Now, I should mention that the leaker actually refers to these items as strike exclusive loot, but are they truly going to be strike exclusive a la Destiny 1, or are they going to stay Nightfall exclusive a la Destiny 2? Probably it will still be Nightfall exclusive, and the reason being is because remember that Bungie is restructuring Nightfalls in Destiny 2 to allow you to play a choice of 3 different Nightfalls per week, so that you can go after the specific loot that you do actually want. And they wouldn't be doing that if they were moving all the loot to just normal Strike exclusive loot. So likely again, these are going to be Nightfall rewards for replaying the Prison of Elders Strike. You're going to potentially get Prison of Elders loot, which is still quite sweet. And so guys, that is it for the video. I hope you enjoyed and found this informative. Now, if you did, please remember to help me out by simply rating and especially sharing this video. And if you guys want to get in touch with me and keep up to date with the latest channel activity, the best way is to follow me on Twitter at RickCacus. That's linked in the description down below, as is my Twitch channel, which you can also follow. Again, I hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, have a good day.